Welcome to The Simple Life, Week 2. I'm Jane Van Ostel.
And I'm Mary Kane. Glad you're with us again.
Yes, we are. We're the authors of OnlyByPrayer.com, and The Simple Life is our first ever online Bible study. And we're just recording a very short little podcast for you ladies as you are starting on Week 2. And Mary, for Week 2, the ladies are supposed to be in chapters 3 and 4 of their book, Becoming a Woman of Simplicity, by Cynthia Heald. So today, we simply want to go ahead and discuss Psalm 55, verse 22, just to give you a little insight into this next week.
That's right. Last week, we learned that in order to have simplicity in our life and to simplify our lives, we need to focus on just one thing, and that's God. In order to find simple peace, we must be in His presence and in His Word. Now, this week we are going to learn that the simple life is more than just clearing our calendars and our schedules. We must also clear our minds.
That's a good thought, and that's often really hard for me to do.
That's right. Can you read our Bible verse for this week, Jane, that we're focusing on?
Yes. Again, it's Psalm 55:22, and it says, "Cast your burden on the Lord, and He shall sustain you. He shall never permit the righteous to be moved."
Yeah, I really like this verse, Jane. You know that I'm a word buff, and I love to get into the original language. So
Yes.
we're going to take a look at this word cast. In the original language of the Old Testament, most of it is Hebrew, the word cast means to throw, to cast, to hurl, or fling. And I thought about it while I was studying this, and I thought to myself, well, why do we use the word cast here? Why not just give it to the Lord, or place this to the Lord, or transfer this to the Lord? And I started thinking about that, and I think God was showing me that usually when we cast something away from us, most of the time it's something dangerous or something that's harmful to us, like a bomb or something that you need to get rid of it quickly because it's going to harm you. Now, the Bible does tell us in Psalms 37:8 that fretting is indeed harmful. Stop fretting. It can only cause harm. And the word harm means to break into pieces and to do evil. So we learn from this verse then that fretting is doing evil to ourselves. Now, whether we will fret or not about a burden depends on whether or not we trust the one upon whom we have cast it. I have found that to be true in my own life. Like if I ask certain students at school, could you please go down to the office and do this for me and get that? I know there are certain students who I can trust to carry out a task.
Right.
And take my mind off that. I won't worry about it. I know it will be done. But there's other students where I think, I'm going to maybe take a chance and try it and ask the student to do something for me. I don't know if it's going to finish or not, and then I'm worrying about it. So my ability to cast my burden onto someone depends on whether or not I really trust them.
Ooh, that's a great thought. So then, of course, we're thinking that, do we have issues with trust?
Exactly. And I know I have, as much as I don't like to admit it. Many of the times that I've carried burdens after I've prayed about them is because I haven't trusted God to take care of them. I didn't think I was going to like the way He would take care of them.
Yeah, or that we could do a better job of it.
Oh, sure. All my worrying has brought wonderful results. How about you?
Yeah, definitely. I wanted to say, too, one of the things that I saw when I looked up that word cast, and I really loved this little part of it, it described it as a forcible eviction. So, yeah, I know. So we are to forcibly evict our cares. And then I thought of it like a bad tenant in an apartment,
Someone who's trying to take up residence and live there.
Right. So at one point in our lives, Mark and I actually co-owned an apartment with some friends, and we had some bad tenants there, and we had to go through, we had to ask them to leave. We had to do the eviction process. So that's kind of what we need to do with our burdens. We need to evict them from our minds and from our spirits because they're like a bad tenant. They're going to do a lot of damage.
And then just from that word eviction, it brings to mind something that's not going to be very easy or sometimes very pleasant.
That's correct. And a lot of times they don't want to leave.
That's That's right. That's right. And when we cast our burden on the Lord, though, something great happens. He sustains us. Now, I looked at this word in the original language, and sustain means to hold, to support. Here's the great part: to nourish, to provide with food, and to protect. So we have a choice then of holding on to our burdens all by ourselves or letting God hold them for us. And when He holds it, it's then that He will nourish us in the process. So if we don't cast it, if we hold on to it, it's going to harm us. But if we do cast it, God's going to hold it, and He's going to make us stronger. He's going to build us up, and we're going to benefit through that process.
I like that. I particularly like the part about nourishing us.
Yes, I guess that imagination, how we feel about organic food in this house. We're always after our smoothies and our greens and stuff, nourishing. We want to grow stronger in our faith with the Lord.
That's right. Okay, so what's the next step of this verse then?
Well, I thought about this. It sounds easy. We talk about casting, so what actually does that look like when we cast? And I can't say that I'm an expert at this, but as I thought about it, here's what I have found that works for me. Number one thing we have to do, obviously, is pray. We take it before God, and we tell Him about it. And then I find some kind of Bible verse that has to do with this issue, and I claim that Bible verse. And then I also pray over it. I ask for God's will to be done. And that's part of where the trusting comes. It's not how I want it to turn out or how I think it's best. Part of that casting is trusting God to work His will for this situation.
And that's where we have to do this. We have to take our hands off of it. And whatever He thinks is best for that situation is what we have to let happen. And I know as moms, that is one of the hardest things to do with your children, is when you've prayed about it to let go of it, because we often want to take it back, and that's where the whole trust issue comes in again.
Okay, and also if you ask the question, not why, like why God is this happening to me, but what God do you want me to learn through this? And be aware that after you've prayed and cast the burden, what does God want you to learn through this situation? The next thing that I do, Jane, when I have been casting a burden, is I act. I think to myself, and just listen to me go through this here for a second. What step would I take next if I really trusted God for this situation? So I'm going to think about what would I do if I was really trusting God, and then I am going to take that step.
Say that again, because I think we need to let that settle in.
Right. I think to myself, the whole key to casting has been this one little point here, is that I need to take some action. I have trusted God with this. Now, what would I do? If I were completely trusting God for this situation, what would I do next? How would I act if I was truly trusting God for this? And then I do that thing out of faith and out of obedience to show God that I am going to trust Him. My feelings may not line up, but my actions can line up. And after right actions come right feelings.
And you know what? That very thought popped into my head, and I think you just said this, that it may feel counterintuitive. We may feel like we should be worrying and we should go hole up somewhere, because how can I go out and act like nothing's wrong when there's something catastrophic going on,
And I like your reference there to going and holing up someplace. I had something like this happen about a week and a half ago. I was on my way home from the grocery store. It was the end of the week. I was carrying, my $300 load of groceries because both boys were coming home, and then on the way home from the grocery store, I get a phone call. Oh, somebody found your wallet laying in the driveway at Martin's. And I was like, oh, great. So as I was starting to drive home, I'm imagining, the trip on the yacht or whatever that, that's been bought with my card and all the Gucci boots and stuff. And I dreamed up, $20,000 in debt before I got another mile down the road. And I had to stop myself. It's like, okay, I prayed about this. What would I do if I was really trusting God for this? I thought I would relax with these vain imaginations, and I would trust God. I unpacked my groceries. I turned around, and I truly was peaceful then. I really was. Went back to the grocery store, got my wallet, and I thought if somebody's bought something, God's got it covered. What could I do about it? Only thing I could do was trust. And that time it worked.
Okay.
So I pray over it. I act. And that's the next step. Is I stop. I stop panic mode. I stop, planning everything that's going to go wrong and how I'm going to end up, in debtor's prison or something. Just stop all that stuff, and I continue to pray. And anytime I feel fretting about it again, I continue to pray again until I can finally be at peace.
Good point. Because sometimes we have to do that several times.
Oh, yes. Especially if you're an old fretter like myself. You're really good at it.
That's right.
So hopefully I'll become really bad at it. Now we have to look at the last part of this verse, Jane.
Mm-hmm.
And I never really thought about this before, but it was huge. He shall never permit the righteous to be moved. Okay. So I thought about this word permit. It means give permission. To be moved means to overthrow, to ruin, to destroy something. So God is never giving his permission for something to come into your life that is going to destroy you, that is going to ruin you. So that is a reason that we can trust. Everything, the Bible, in the book of Romans, it says everything is for our good, is for our benefit. So even these hard, stressful things, if we will see it through to the end, they are for our benefit. And that's another place where we trust him. Everything will work for the good of those who are called according to his purpose.
That's right. As I was looking up that word, the last word in there, moved, not afraid to be moved, or in some versions it says fall. What I came away with was from the Hebrew is that it means he is firm or intrepid. And I looked up then the word intrepid just in a regular dictionary, and it said intrepid means not afraid, bold, fearless, and dauntless. So as I was, letting that sit on me for a minute and thinking about it, I thought of the opposite. So when I am not doing that and I'm doing the opposite and I'm worrying and fretting, the opposite of all those wonderful characteristics that I just read are going to come true. And instead, I'm going to become afraid. Instead of bold, I'm going to become a little sniveling coward. And I'm not going to want to try to do anything. So actually, when we carry our own burdens on our shoulders instead of giving them to God, they weaken us. And they make us useless for God's kingdom.
Yeah, I was just running through my mind the choice we have. We can either be a sniveling little coward hiding out in our house, or we can trust God and be bold. And it stops us from doing his work, doesn't it?
Yes, it does.
And worrying, we can't do a single thing for his kingdom.
No, we certainly can't, because we're all tied up in our own affairs.
That's right. Yep, in our own vain imaginations.
That's right.
I've learned a lot from this, Jane.
Me too.
And I'm really glad that you did a little extra research there and found out that whole intrepid. That's a totally different look at that word.
Yeah. Well, ladies, we hope that this little short podcast will get you started for week 2. And we look forward to hearing what you are going to be learning. So thank you for joining us in the Simple Life Week 2. And you can find your information on onlybyprayer.com.
And just a little heads up, we're going to be focusing on silence for the discipline of this week. Working some silence into our lives. I know it's going to be challenging for some of us.
Not naming any names.
All right.
Have a great day, and God be with you.